Good evening and welcome. This is the January 25th, 2023 public hearing of the Land Use Commission. The City Code directs this body to hear applications for map and text amendments, special uses including plan developments, zoning relief, and appeals from decisions of the zoning administrator, as well as to make recommendations regarding the city's long-term planning goals and objectives. Depending on the type of matter, this commission will either make a final determination or send its recommendation to City Council. Ms. Jones, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Aravallo? Commissioner Halleck?
Yes, here.
Commissioner Hugo?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Here.
Commissioner Lenoir?
Here.
Commissioner Murdenchev?
Here.
Commissioner Puctel?
Here.
Commissioner Westerberg?
Here.
Chair Rogers?
Here. With 8 members present, we do have a quorum. Also present tonight from city staff are Neighborhood and Land Use Planner Megan Jones, Planner Katie Ashbaugh, Assistant City Attorney Brian George, and Planning Manager Liz Williams. This is a formal hearing and there are rules that govern our proceedings. Most importantly, only one person speaks at a time so that all testimony may be recorded accurately. Anyone who wishes to address the commission regarding any matter on tonight's agenda will have the opportunity to do so at the appropriate time. Our procedure is to hear from staff on the documents on file and then receive testimony and other evidence from the applicant or appellant. After that, persons wishing to make a statement regarding the matter will have a chance to do so. Any person with a legal interest in property located within the defined notification requirements of the subject property may present evidence, reasonably question witnesses, or seek a continuance of the hearing. When all supporting and opposing testimony and statements have been heard, the applicant or appellant will be given the opportunity for rebuttal or a closing statement. Then the commission will close the record and begin deliberations to consider the standards. The commission will make formal findings of fact based on the testimony and evidence presented, guided by the standards, the commissioner's knowledge of our community, and the recommendations of staff. All testimony is taken under oath. Although we do not apply the strict rules of evidence, please limit your testimony to the proposal as it relates to the standards contained in the zoning ordinance and corresponding staff memorandum. When testifying, please state your name and address for the record and sign in on the public sign-in sheet. Our meetings are audio and video recorded. Please make sure that you are at a microphone when asking questions or making statements so that you can be properly recorded. All proceedings are subject to broadcast at a later date. Any matter not concluded at tonight's hearing will be continued to our next regularly scheduled meeting. We have 2 items on our agenda this evening. Is the applicant for 2311 Prospect Avenue present? Thank you. And 2201 Oakton. Thank you. With that, we will move into our agenda. The first item that we have on our agenda this evening is the approval of our meeting minutes from January 11th, 2023. Has everybody had a chance to look through those? And are there any edits, changes that need to be made? Commissioner Halleck?
I have one. It's on page 4 of 1733 Oakton, which is the second project, under deliberations. Just want to correct my quote here. It says Commissioner Halleck noted residents cannot own light or noise, and what I said was cannot own natural light or views. So that was it for me.
Okay. Anything else? If not, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I move to approve the minutes as corrected.
Moved by Commissioner Lindwall. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Commissioner Westerberg. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Abstain.
We have 3 abstentions down here and 5 ayes, so the minutes are approved with that edit that Commissioner Halleck pointed out. Now we will move into the business on tonight's agenda, the first being the matter of 2311 Prospect Avenue, 22 ZMJV 0098. I don't know whose project this is. Is Commissioner, Ms. Ashbaugh?
David S. Howes and Ruth B. Rosenthal, property owners, request a major variation from section 6828A3 of the Evanston zoning code to allow an interior side yard of 2 feet, 9 inches, where an interior side yard of 5 feet is required along the north interior side lot line to allow for an addition to an existing single-family home located on property commonly known as 2311 Prospect Avenue, Evanston, in the R1 single-family residential district. The Land Use Commission is the determining body for this case in accordance with Section 6-3-8-10 of the Evanston Zoning Code and Ordinance 92-0-21. And this is zoning case 22ZMJV-0098.
Thank you, Ms. Ashbaugh. Would the applicant like to come up, please, to the lectern and introduce yourself to us? Actually, before you begin, I need to swear everybody in. So anybody who may be speaking tonight on any matter, if you'd please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth throughout the course of these proceedings?
I do.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Now, go ahead, please.
Okay. My name's Ruth Rosenthal, and I'm owner with my husband, David House, who is out of town for work. So that's why he's not here. Anyway, we own 2311 Prospect. Our daughter and her husband and a brand-new 6-week-old baby now live there and have lived there since 2014. My daughter, when she got pregnant in April, we decided to do more work on the house, have it all ready for the baby. And one of the things we had never done is address the issue of the garage. The garage is a one-car garage on the north side of the house. It's a one-story. And because the house was built in, I think it was 1928, cars weren't the size that they are now, so you can drive the car in, but you can't get out of it. You know, you couldn't open the doors, let alone take a baby in and out or something like that. So we would like to just extend the side, rebuild it, but extend the side, which needs the variance because we'd be closer to the lot line of the north neighbors. Okay, so that's why we've applied for that. We would like consideration given to the fact that the garage enters the house partway down the staircase to the basement. So it doesn't enter the house at the house. So to use it as a room is a kind of odd configuration. You'd be going down to the basement and then veering off. So it'd be nice to have it as the original structure was built. We'd like to keep the integrity of the structure. The other concerns are if we had to put a 2-car garage in the back, it would eat up a lot of the yard. There's a beautiful old maple tree that would have to come down to accommodate it. And another very important, more than that, important issue is, so 2 years ago, my daughter was diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia. When she was 36 weeks pregnant, she got diagnosed with 2 types of breast cancer and is currently undergoing chemo. So she's had mobility problems for the last couple of years. She had to leave her job at the end of June. She was a learning specialist at a school because of her mobility problems. She hopes to go back to work and do something through a, remote access kind of job. But she does have trouble getting around, and now having the baby and now having chemo, it's just like factor compounded on factor. So I guess these, for us, are the biggest concerns and reasons why we would like the variance. And I know that, supposedly, her neighbor told her that they don't oppose it. And supposedly she sent, I don't know because I haven't seen anything or talked to her, but supposedly she sent in some sort of comment.
I think that's the comment we all received earlier today.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
are there questions for Ms. Rosenthal? Commissioner Westerberg?
The one-story addition in the back of the house, when was that built?
That was there when we
When you
bought
bought
the
it?
house. It was, I think it's from the 60s, if you look at it.
Right.
The people who owned the house prior had 7 children in a 3-bedroom house. So they built this big room to accommodate their 4 daughters. We've turned it into a family room.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Just to get this in the record, is there an alley? There is an alley behind the property?
There is an alley.
Okay, and did you look at building a garage off the alley sort of thing?
Well,
that a
we'd really
consideration?
rather not, for the reasons that I already spoke to, in terms of eating up the yard, in terms of having to walk the length you know, for her to come around to the house. I mean, so there are a couple reasons why we'd rather, we're big on keeping the integrity of the way the house was. We think there's historical value to history, so.
Just another question.
bias, yeah.
Related to that. I thought you explained this, but maybe not. When you said the garage was a little bit lower than the main level of the house, if you raise the level of the garage, if you did the garage in the back,
So,
you wouldn't have headroom? Is that the problem, or what? In other words.
no, the entrance from the garage, so let's say I'm here in the garage and I want to walk into the house, I walk into the stairs that go from the kitchen to the basement, about 4 or 5 stairs down.
Okay.
So the
it's-
stairway down to the basement is where the garage comes in.
Got it. Okay, so it's,
Yeah. And we're just talking about, like I said, widening it, widening it. Not making it taller, nothing like that, but, we would have to reconstruct it, but to make it wider so we can get the car in, open the doors, take the baby out. Yeah.
And it looks like, if I'm interpreting your architect's drawings correctly, it looks like you will be, what material will be used for the garage? Are they using a masonry?
I think they talked about, so it's not a stucco, but you know how stucco board is? There's brick board.
Okay.
Yeah, because we want, again, match the brick, because it's brick, to match the house.
Okay.
So, yeah.
But it's not siding like the current garage.
Well, the
is
current garage is part brick and part siding.
Right.
Yeah. So, no, we would have it all brick.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a question. One of the priorities of the city in their current comprehensive plan is to reduce curb cuts. And it seems like your property is one of the only ones in that block that has the driveway in front, and therefore a curb cut in front, creating another point of intersection between traffic and pedestrians. I'm curious how much we've actually explored the idea of this being an opportunity to improve the space by getting rid of the curb cut and going and having the garage in the alley. It also seems like, based on the aerial photos, that most of the properties all surrounding you all do use the alley with a detached garage. So it doesn't seem like your configuration would be, that you putting a garage in the back would be out of the norm
No.
for the area.
No, I agree. Yeah. But, I mean, the driveway's there, regardless. Even if we can't get the variance and we have to use that space for something else and put a garage in the back, we're not necessarily going to get rid of the driveway. The curb cut would remain. Which I've seen plenty of houses around us that have that.
Right, but we would require the curb cut to remove if the garage ceased to be a functioning garage, because that would be a
But
parking
I'm
tank
saying,
in the front.
it wouldn't be a functioning garage if we can't get the variance, because we can't use it as a garage.
Right, but as soon as you change it and there's no longer a garage door on the front, then the curb cut has to be removed.
Oh,
Yeah, so I'm
did
not.
not know that.
I'm just pointing that out, so
Okay,
it's not.
I did not
I'm
know
not
that.
necessarily saying that's what you have
Okay.
to do or anything, but just
Yeah.
that point of information there.
okay.
Any other questions for Ms. Rosenthal?
I have one, last one. Your neighbor just indicated a concern to make sure that neither the tree nor their foundation, which is close to you, gets damaged, and I assume you will
Yes.
be able to
yes.
provide
We have promised her
assurance.
multiple times. We have talked to her about we're willing to put in drain tiles so that water doesn't run off, onto their side. But no, there's no intention whatsoever. And we're not going to be close enough. Well, I don't know what you can see from the diagrams, but if you look, the two houses are far enough apart that we're really not going to be that close to their actual house. So no, we're not going to touch anything of theirs, and we have no intention of doing that.
Seeing nothing else, is there anything you'd like to say in summation? Or actually, is there anybody else who came to speak on this? I didn't see anybody else, so.
There's nobody else here that I recognize.
So is there anything you'd like to say in summation before we begin deliberation?
I think I gave you all our concerns and thoughts. Yeah. I don't know what else to add, per se, so.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for listening.
We will close the record then and begin our deliberation. Due to lack of questions from some commissioners, I think they kind of know where they want to go with this. But I'll ask if anybody has any particular thoughts they'd like to share. Commissioner Minchev?
I am a neighbor, actually. I live 3 blocks away, and I pass this house every morning during my walk and jogging. So my concern was about shadow, because this building's on the south side of the neighbors. But I carefully looked at it. The extension of a garage will not affect how much light comes to the north neighbor. So I think it's a reasonable project. Besides, it will look even better with the masonry and how it attaches to the house. So I'm in favor.
Thank you. Anyone else? If not, we do have a set of standards that we have to find are met. There are 7 standards for major variation, which is what this request is. The first one being the requested variation will not have a substantial adverse impact on the use, enjoyment, and property values of adjoining properties. We've heard from the neighbor that would be most impacted by this, that they believe that this is a decent project as long as their tree and water issues are taken care of. And I have no reason to believe any differently. And Commissioner Miranchef also mentioned that the neighbor is situated on the north, so therefore any potential of blocking light does not seem to be a reality, so this standard is met. Number 2, the requested variation is in keeping with the intent of the zoning ordinance. The zoning ordinance does allow for the approval and changes to properties. As the applicant themselves said, when the garage was added at some point after the initial construction of the house, the car that was meant to fit in it is not a typical car from today's standards. So adding a request to enlarge the garage in its existing location to make it a usable garage seems reasonable to me, and I believe that standard is met. The alleged hardship or practical difficulty is peculiar to the property. The garage is located in its current situation, probably built before the current zoning ordinances were in place, which dictated some of our current setbacks and everything. The fact that it's being replaced with something that is more usable today, again, I feel that the difficulty is peculiar to the property because of where this particular garage is located. The property owner would suffer a particular hardship or practical difficulty is distinguished from a mere inconvenience if the strict letter of the regulations were to be carried out. If we carried out the strict regulations, I believe we'd be making a smaller garage potentially, which would create a bigger hardship for the homeowner, and that is not what's being sought here. So I believe that standard is met. The purpose of the variation is not based exclusively upon a desire to extract additional income. This, I don't believe, is a matter in this particular case. They aren't going to be renting the garage. It'll be used by the homeowner, which is a member of their family, or the resident, which is a member of their family. Number 6, the alleged difficulty or hardship has not been created by a person having an interest in the property. We heard testimony that this house has been altered a couple times in its history with the addition on the back, and obviously this is not an original garage, is my guess based on the fact that it's built from different materials. So I believe that standard is met. And number 7, the requested variation requires the least deviation from the applicable regulation among the feasible options identified before the Land Use Commission. The request is to replace something basically almost in kind, but make it usable as opposed to what is currently there. So I believe that standard is also met. Is everyone in agreement with my findings on standards? If so, I will ask if there is a motion for approval of 2311 Prospect Avenue.
Sure. I move approval of the variations requested for 2311 Prospect Avenue, case number 22 ZMJV-0098.
Is there a second for the motion? Any further discussion? Hearing none. I'll ask for a roll call vote.
Commissioner Halleck? Commissioner Hugo?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Linwall?
Yes,
Commissioner Merdinchev?
Yes.
Commissioner Pucktall?
Yes.
Commissioner Westerberg?
Yes.
Chair Rogers?
Yes. So with a vote of 8-0, the motion carries and the project is approved. You can work with city staff on what next steps will be in terms of moving forward. And good luck with your project. Thank you. We will move on then to our second case of this evening, which is 2201 Oakton Avenue, 22 ZMJV 0087. Ms. Ashbaugh, is this you again?
Yes. Daniel Grove, licensed landscape architect and AICP certified, of Kimley Horn, an applicant on behalf of the property owner, the Home Depot, requests a special use permit to allow for outdoor storage and open sales on the property located at 2201 Oakton Street in the I-1 Industrial/Office District and the ORD Redevelopment Overlay District. The applicant also requests two major variations from the Evanston zoning code to allow for the proposed outdoor storage to be located in the front yard where outdoor storage is prohibited, section 6-14-1-8A, and to not screen the proposed outdoor storage where screening on all sides by an 8-foot tall solid fence is required, section 6-14-1-8B. The Land Use Commission makes a recommendation to the City Council, the determining body for this case, in accordance with zoning code section 6-3-5-9 and ordinance 92-021.
Thank you. The applicant, if you'd like to step up to the lectern, please, and begin by giving us your name and address.
Thank you. My name is Daniel Grove, 4201 Winfield Road, Warrenville, Illinois.
Thank you, Mr. Grove. And if you'd please tell us about the proposal that you're here tonight with.
Yep, thank you very much. So currently, as with most Home Depots, there's a number of functions that occur out within the parking lot area, the garden centers, and then various large rental storage, truck rental, and that's been occurring on the site for a while now. And what Home Depot wanted to be able to do was add some additional large rental items. So these are all things that don't fit within the store or are seasonal. They're out on display for the benefit of the customers. And so with that, in talking with staff, the goal was to clean up, the kind of the regulations around the zoning around the site with the special use and major variations. In the discussion with staff, because there's no opportunity to put these in the side yards, we only have the parking lot in the front yard. The discussion with staff was to locate these areas at the extreme sides of the parking lot. We worked with staff to make sure that we weren't taking up more parking spaces that would cause us to be below the requirement. So we are at 404 spaces, and it's 395 spaces required based on the square footage of the building. And so the goal is just to kind of formalize and clean up where these rentals are happening, or the garden center activities are happening, and just have that clearly defined for the future.
When you say large rental, what exactly are you talking about?
It's, a variety of I mean, so there's the, trucks and trailers, moving trucks and trailers. And then it may include some of, things like a small backhoe, like a,
Similar to a Bobcat sort of thing.
aerial equipment, it's skid steer, light towers, just kind of things that people would use for a little larger yard project or home project that they would rent. And so having them up there where they can see them and understand that they're available for rental is important to Home Depot.
Okay. And those things will be, because I go here all the time to this parking, or to this area because of Aldi and PetSmart being there as well. The large rentals is the thing that kind of concerns me because it's kind of in the middle of the parking lot. It's on the edge of your parking lot, but it's kind of right as you pull in the parking lot. Was there consideration about maybe trying to find someplace different for that, or switching like shed displays over by the gardening center so you could move that stuff further back on the property? So was there any consideration to kind of rearranging some of that stuff? Or was this kind of the plan and this was the plan you went with?
This was just a formalization and moving everything over of kind of what's happening now. A lot of the current rentals are actually a couple bays
2 rows in, they're just to the left as you come in the parking, or in the drive.
I would need to talk to, the store manager. I don't see an issue with moving the sheds and trying to bring that area back. I don't think that would be an issue. I think the garden center is the most kind of locationally based item. I think that the large tool, like the large rentals, does want to stay somewhere on that east side because of their tool rental
Tool
area.
rentals on that side, yeah.
Yeah, so any, if there was a preferred configuration, I think that they would likely be open to it, but I would need to confirm with them.
Okay.
I have a question for staff. What is the stated purpose of the fencing requirement? Is it for security? Is it for pedestrian flow? What is it?
I would imagine that it was intended more for truly industrial properties where there's manufacturing or some sort of other, or outdoor storage occurring. Like the properties to the north of this particular site, it just happens that this is more of a retail center in an I district.
It also is used heavily for screening of properties from each other. But it's odd because this is an industrial that has full frontage on Oakton. That is a retail space as well. If it were manufacturing of some sort, having a fence across there would make sense. But with it being retail, it's a little different.
So you're saying it's for screening
Correct. I would,
mostly?
and I honestly, with the configuration of the property lines, it would be the fencing and the relationship with the property to the east. I think the location of a fence of that height, or a fence at all, would encumber how the rest of the whole layout functions with cross access.
Okay.
Commissioner Westerberg?
Is there any reason to provide screening just from an aesthetic point of view, or just to kind of condense what's going on there, and, any reason to keep it sort of somewhat shielded visually?
When I went to the site to post the signs, I can say that they were pretty far set back from Oakton. And then there's a Steak and Shake also at the front, and it's really kind of set back, in my opinion. And there's a little bit of shrubbery that's there currently. So I don't feel that screening is necessary here, for the rental vehicles. But I would imagine that if the commission wanted additional, we would have to evaluate where there's existing green space to add it, because I think some of the pavement goes to the lot line.
Commissioner Huco?
Just a question for clarification, just to understand. The activities for which the special use permit and the 2 major variations, the activities for which you're seeking these things, have been going on for years. So you've been in non-conforming status for a number of years for these activities.
That's my
I
understanding.
guess the question is maybe to the city, how does this happen? And why were these variances and variations in permits not sought when the activity first started?
So that's a great question. I think that over time, the Home Depot has probably evolved their practices and people go there and frequent there. So I would imagine that it was a little bit of scope creep on their part. And then in terms of how the city became aware of it, it's my understanding that a prior council member and had contacted staff about it, and Daniel had been working with zoning administrator Melissa Klotz with getting everything in about a year ago, and we're now kind of at that point of we know what they're they did update their plans, for example, to show the largest possible that they will plan to do for the garden center. And then I think there might be also expanding a little bit of their truck rental. So that this was an effort to your point, get it into compliance now, since they are expanding the use more noticeably, and it was on the radar of elected officials.
Commissioner Linvall.
Yeah, when I was out looking at the site a few days ago, I mean, the trucks were kind of like all over. So is the intent to, kind of define them in a single row, as it were? Because that was really, at least aesthetically, it was kind of messy, and it was hard to tell where you wanted to be if you just wanted to park.
Yeah, if I can answer. Yeah, I've had conversations with store management about how this will need to be contained. It will need to be monitored. It'll probably, maybe some different striping to identify those stalls. Because obviously they're not going to be using every stall, things will be rented out. And so often there'll be many vacant stalls, but they don't want to have customers park there so that as things are returned, they can be placed back in that designated area.
Yeah, and you want the people who have rented the trunk to return them to the proper location, which doesn't look like it happens now.
Right.
I have a question. I am a little concerned about the garden area. I frequented this Home Depot and this parking lot quite a lot over the last 5 years. And I don't have an issue with the large rental area because it seems much less used, but the garden area, especially in the spring and the early summer, is extremely popular with a lot of customers and people and pedestrian traffic moving from there. And I can just, from my own experience, I've felt at times that there's a level of like danger or a lack of safety between the amount of like pedestrian movement and the parking lot and the cars moving around. I've noticed over the past few years that the store has taken steps to try to address that, and they've taken cones and try to designate some areas where to try to funnel people through. But I would like some sort of assurance that whatever that pedestrian flow plan should be like re-examined and not, I don't know if it needs to be submitted to anybody, but I'd like that to be like reevaluated because it goes beyond, it's so popular that it goes beyond, I think, a normal type of use of just trying to use space for storage in the parking area. I don't know if there's been incidents in the past or not, but it does seem concerning to me.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Yeah.
Is your concern between the garden area and the store itself, or around the perimeters of the garden area?
I mean, anywhere along, I'm looking at the aerial view right now of the garden area, and anything to the east of that and to the north of it, in between the store and to the east, pedestrians don't necessarily know, it's not obvious, like where Home Depot wants customers to enter. Mm-hmm. And I don't know and I would leave it up to the management to decide what's best, whether it's signage or something to move people around. I mean, they can come up with the best solution that seems right, but it does seem like it's an issue that needs to be addressed.
Chair Rogers. Can I? So I will add something to this. I usually go to Home Depot from the west entrance. So left turn, go inside, and then you come up to a place where several exits from the parking lot interfere with the entrance from the street and with the internal street that serves all the parking. So this point of 3 or 4 incoming places, there is only one stop sign, which is on the interior street. There are no stop signs on the exits from the parking lot. And this is a really dangerous location because part of the very south parking spaces are almost never used. So there are trucks that cross through the parking and go directly to the exit. There is no stop sign for them. And it creates a chaotic situation that may lead to accidents. So it is not related to what you are currently presenting, but I would say that it needs attention because it may happen. It may already have happened. At least stop signs on the exits from the parking should be placed. Thank you.
I kind of following up on that and what Commissioner Fertel was saying, is the plan to keep the outdoor garden area assigned all year, to take it in and out? I can't remember what current practice is.
I think that, actually, we've got a representative from the store that I'm going to.
Sure, yeah. So if you could state your name for us, please.
Ramsey Word.
Ramsey Gordon?
Ramsey Word.
Word. Mr. Word, you are employed with Home Depot?
Yes, I'm
Okay.
an assistant manager for 2201 Oakton Street at Home Depot.
Okay, thank you. So you heard my question is kind of what is the plan? Is this a more permanent space? Is it a temporary space?
Temporary space depending on the season. So we usually generally in the summer season or spring, summer for gardening, and then in the winter season for tree lots.
Okay.
Those are its two uses.
And so do you remove, again, I can't remember, I drive by it all the time. Do you remove the kind of corral that you have set up during the winter months or shorten it or?
That is correct. So we build the corral out to its maximum size at the height of the season, and then we shorten the corral as the season goes on. And then during the fall and winter months, we'll go ahead and build that corral out again, and then we'll condense it down once we run out of product.
Okay. All right, thank you. That kind of helps me put in mind some thoughts here.
Thank you.
Because I'm kind of wondering if that opening at the end on the curve can somehow be ballarded off or something like that to, when it's in use, prevent people from coming in and out that way and help lessen the traffic in there? I mean, it's just an idea.
We also currently use the area for salt.
Okay.
So we store our salt there for the winter, for whenever we need to salt the parking lot. So.
Okay, thank you. Other thoughts, questions, comments?
Does this plan bring everything up to date, as you said, to make it compliant? Can we assume there won't be any further sort of serendipitous changes, or that this will achieve what you want and will be written in and we won't see anything else going on?
Yeah, and that was the discussion that we had with staff, and the goal was to actually define these areas larger than we feel we need today, so that we're not coming back to you, that we understand, the balance with the parking, we're defining these larger than we need so that we're always going to be able to work within these boundaries.
Any other questions? If you would like to sum up for us, Mr. Grove, and just tell us your final argument.
As we covered, I think, the goal is to just formalize what's been occurring, make sure that there's flexibility moving forward to make this, continue this as a successful business that serves the Evanston community and provides for the needs. So, we're hoping to have this move forward to allow them to do that, allow Home Depot to do that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I will ask if there's anybody else who here wishes to speak, but I see no one else in the room who has not spoken, so I will go ahead and close the record and begin our deliberations. Again, we have a couple issues on this particular one. There's the special use and then the major variation as well. Anyone have any thoughts? Okay. With that, I will go through the standards. Again, we have two different sets of standards here. One is for a special use and one is for a major variation. I'll go through the special use first. The first one being that it is one of these special uses that is specifically listed in the zoning ordinance. In this particular case, the special use that we are looking at is for, I've lost my place here, is for the outdoor storage and the open sales on the property. So this is one of the special uses that would be permitted. It is in keeping with the purposes and policies of the adopted comprehensive general plan and the zoning ordinance as amended from time. Evanston is kind of interesting in that we used to have a lot of industrial. We don't have much industrial left, but we still do have these industrial spaces, which get used for many different things. And, part of our comprehensive general plan and the zoning ordinance is to allow these spaces to be used in such a way that it makes sense. So when we see somebody who's coming with a large lot that has no rear yards or backyards or anything else, it's kind of interesting that they're forced to do everything up front. But this is an adaptive reuse of that space, which is a very large parking lot, so I believe that has met. Number 3, it will not cause a negative cumulative effect when its effect is considered in conjunction with the cumulative effect of various special uses of all types in the immediate neighborhood. Again, this is an area that's industrial, is surrounded by industrial and retail. We've not heard any testimony that this really would be encroaching upon neighbors, and we've not heard any testimony from those neighbors that they would feel a negative effect. So I believe that standard has been met. Number 4, it does not interfere with or diminish the value of property in the neighborhood. Actually, this is kind of a continuation of use that has been in place for some time. And again, it being an industrial area, I don't believe that this is something that we would have to worry about the value of property in the neighborhood. Number 5, it can be adequately served by public facilities and services. This one really does not apply. It's been in this use as it's been presented to us. The applicant is merely bringing themselves into compliance. Number 6, it does not cause undue traffic congestion. We didn't really speak to traffic congestion, but this is one of our busy streets. It's a wide street, and it also has this large parking lot and is being used in this manner, so I believe this standard is met. Number 7, it preserves significant historical and architectural resources. We're talking about a building that was built for commercial use at some time, probably in the 90s, I believe. 80s maybe even, okay. And so there's no historical or architectural significance to this. Number 8, it preserves significant natural and environmental features. We are working with a parking lot, which does not have natural or environmental features to it. And number 9, it complies with all other applicable regulations of the district in which it is located and other applicable ordinances except as modified through plan development process or grants of variations. Obviously, we'll be going through the major variations in a minute, but again, this actually is bringing this particular applicant into compliance with our ordinances, so I believe that is met. Do you want me to handle these separately, staff, or do you want me to group them together as one?
We'll defer to the commission if you feel that there's a desire to recommend one way or the other on separately.
I
If
don't
you
think
feel that
there
you'll
is,
do
so
a
I
joint.
think we do it
Okay.
as one
Sure.
thing. I didn't know if you wanted it separated for any particular reason.
Nope, totally your
So we'll just go ahead and go into the major variation standards then, some of which are very similar. The requested variation will not have a substantial adverse impact on the use, enjoyment, or property values of adjoining properties. Again, I'll say industrial district, neighbors didn't complain. The requested variation is in keeping with the intent of the zoning ordinance. Again, referring to the fact that we like to have adaptive reuse of properties and the fact that the applicant is coming into compliance in this particular case with our zoning ordinance makes this standard met. The alleged hardship or practical difficulty is peculiar to the property. And looking at the particular things that we're looking at, which include fences, placing fences in the middle of parking lots, although this is a separate parking lot by pin from the neighbors to the east, it is in fact one contiguous parking lot as you move through it. So that would seem odd to do. Number 4, the property owner would suffer a particular hardship or practical difficulty is distinguished from a mere inconvenience. Obviously, this is something that this particular home service store with its competitors tend to do by renting tools, renting equipment, having outdoor garden centers, things that we would expect to find there. And if we were to make them box all of this stuff in with an 8-foot fence, it would really impact their ability to make the sale to clients and let clients know that they have these things as they drive through along Oakton. So I believe that standard is met. The purpose of the variation is not based exclusively upon a desire to extract additional income from the property. The property value does not increase because of this. Obviously, they will generate additional income, hopefully through rentals, but it does not affect the property value itself. Number 6, the alleged difficulty or hardship has not been created by any person having an interest in the property. Again, the building was probably constructed sometime in the late 80s, early 90s, and the store has been in operation for many years, and there's no single person who has created this particular issue. And number 7, the requested variation requires the least deviation from the applicable regulation among the feasible options identified before this body. Again, the fact that we're able to keep the 2 areas that we are looking at assigning off to the sides helps lessen the need for additional screening on them. So I believe that standard is also met. Is everyone in agreement with my findings on the standards?
I have a condition.
That's fine.
In the first set of standards for 3 and 7 about negative cumulative effect and, sorry, not 7, 6, not causing undue traffic congestion. Related to my earlier points about safety, I'm willing to vote that those 2 standards are met if the Home Depot develops and maintains a formal pedestrian flow plan.
All right. Any other conditions anybody thinks are necessary? Commissioner Huco?
Maybe not necessarily related to the standards, but I'd like to see if we can put in the decision, really nail down what is being permitted here so we don't get this usage creep that we had over the years. And I know on page 62 of the materials, they specifically talk about 74 spaces for the outdoor garden, 14 sheds, 8 trailer spaces, and 30 large rental spaces. Is there a way we can, how will that be formalized so that there's no confusion as to what's been permitted and what hasn't, to avoid that creep that we've seen through the years?
That would be based upon our motion and the way in which we make it and what we grant. So we could grant those specific numbers of things in the areas where they are identified in the materials that have been presented to us.
That would come next once we discuss the motion.
Right. Well, it would be part of the motion. So we could grant approval or recommend approval of these things with the condition that there be 74 garden sales spaces located on the west side of the plan with a pedestrian plan that would be included to protect pedestrians in that particular area, and that there be 14 spaces for sheds, 8 for trailers, and 30 for large space rentals along the east property. Again, any of those sorts of conditions.
All right. And then I know it's premature because we'll do it in the next session here, but I'd like to address Commissioner Linwell's issue as well, to to have these clearly marked so that you don't have customers pulling into rental spaces, and then all of a sudden you've got the rental spaces being dispersed throughout the parking lot because it's full with customer cars. But that would be the additional condition on.
All right, I'm just writing notes here.
I think on the east side, I mean, I think that it would be okay to have flexibility in terms of the specific numbers of the truck versus the equipment, but I think the total number should be defined.
Which we can combine trailers and large rental spaces together, or that.
Yeah, I mean, I just, as long as they're in that location and it's no more than whatever the total number of spaces is.
And
I mean, I don't
in
care.
that particular one, we could actually just label it as the furthest east row of parking, because they're taking up that whole space. On the left, they still have some parking, or on the west, they still have a few parking spaces that aren't included. So however you want to word that to make it fit works for me. Any other?
I would like to add to what Commissioner Puctel proposed, to put a kind of a wording to improve egress and ingress from the west approach to the parking lot, especially when the garden area is used, mostly springtime, because these are things that may lead to accidents over there.
All right.
Agreed.
So the ingress egress pedestrian plan, defining the spaces, and then clearly marking those. I'm taking are the 4 conditions I'm hearing. Am I missing anything? If not, I would ask if there is a motion to recommend approval. And again, we will be doing the special use and the major variations as one group. Ms. Ashbaugh?
Is the commission seeking to have the additional plans and information be part of the materials sent to Planning Development Committee? Staff can then attach these plans as exhibits of the ordinance, or is this something that we would do administratively and it's just a condition in the ordinance?
I think it depends on them. I mean, obviously, marking the spaces is something that's a physical thing that they have to do. I don't know that's wording of that I think is sufficient. A pedestrian plan might be something that they would include a paragraph about, this is what we plan to do to help better define this space, and the same with the ingress egress. But in terms of the number of spaces and how they are marked, I think that the testimony we've heard and the condition that we place is sufficient.
Okay, thank you.
Is there a motion to recommend approval to City Council on the matter for 2201 Oakton Street? From someone? Can you make sense of my notes there?
I move that approval of the special use and major variations for 2201 Oakton Street, 22 ZMJV-0087, with the following conditions: that the areas, the garden area and the equipment rental or parking area be clearly marked, and that the number of spaces devoted to each use, including the number of spaces devoted to each use, the garden uses on the west side of the property and the rental spaces to the east, that that the applicant prepare a pedestrian and ingress and egress plan that will set forth the planned improvements related to safety for consider as part of the materials that move forward to, final approval. Does that do it?
Does that satisfy everyone's conditions?
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I will ask for a roll call vote, please. Ms. Jones?
Commissioner Halleck? Yes. Commissioner Hugo?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Linwall?
Yes.
Commissioner Merinchev?
Yes.
Commissioner Pucktall?
Yes.
Commissioner Westerberg?
Yes.
Chair Rogers?
Yes. So on a vote to 8-0, the matter will move forward to City Council with a recommendation for approval with those conditions that we've placed. And if you have questions about those, please reach out to staff, and they will also guide you through what your next steps will be. Thank you. With that, we have completed the new business we have. One of the matters, should I speak to that? Am I allowed to speak to that, what we talked about today?
Sure.
One of the matters that was not moved onto the agenda was the addition of our committees. Because of that, we're going to hold off for a week since no committees have any immediate action pending before them. And so we will move on to communication. Commissioner Halleck? If you want to ask, if you don't,
I was going to joke that I'd like to be on the comprehensive plan committee if I live that long.
Touche.
a couple other quick little notes. I'm meeting with the mayor on Monday to just sort of discuss how we're functioning, how things are going with us, things like that. If there's anything in particular you would like me to address with the mayor, please let me know. Also to let you know, can I speak to the other matter? We are in interviews for a community development director position. So we have been going through some rounds of interviews on that, and hopefully we'll have some direction at some point soon. So we'll keep you informed as to what's going on with that. At this point, we have public comment. I see no public to comment unless the young, Max Patel's young son would like to comment, who's busy back there playing games and probably not paying attention to what I'm saying. So with that, I will ask if there is a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Lindwall, is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Westerberg. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
We stand adjourned until our meeting on February 8th at 7 o'clock in council chambers.